This is Mandatory Listening with your new host, Kent Mann, followed with Leslie Cunningham. Hi, Leslie.
I can't.
And we're joined today with a special guest, Brenda DiVincenzo. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, how are you?
Doing fantastic. So, we got an interesting industry guest here. So, I'd like you to take a couple minutes and just kind of give us some background on you and introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I am the Director of Member Success for the IPI Member Network. We're a membership association and buying group in the photo and printing industry. So all of our members print. Typically, they print photos, but they really can print anything, graphics, text, on anything. So they provide people, whether it's a business or a consumer, with wall decor, gifts, books, marketing materials, anything promotional for a business to use. Really, we kind of go with we print anything on everything. And I've been with IPI for 11 years. And as the Director of Member Success, I focus mostly on member recruitment, member retention, benefits that really keep them engaged with the organization. Primarily, I focus on communicating with them, education, networking opportunities, planning all of their events. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like right up our alley. I mean, I think we can expand on that with our listeners. I know we're not in just one industry, we're in a bunch of industries. I think a lot of us can resonate with that. Give us a little bit of an update on your industry, the photography industry, and how you guys are expanding yourself or are seeing opportunities in, the quote unquote increasingly digital and fast paced world. Things are changing for a lot of people, and you either got to buckle down or you got to look for the new opportunities. So tell us a little bit about what opportunities you're looking at.
Well, our industry has changed so much in such a short period of time, going from the days of film photography, which I think Leslie is very familiar with and shared some of that, I think, in last week's episode.
Yeah.
But things have changed so much. People don't just have to, the only way that you see your image isn't to drop it off at a store and have someone print it for you. People are taking over 1 trillion photos a year, and you have your camera with you all the time. It's in your pocket. And so it's a real challenge of turning those images, getting them out of devices and turning them into printed products. And so that's changed drastically. But our members that are thriving today have really had to focus on marketing their business as well and providing excellent customer experiences in the store, positioning themselves as experts and really just drawing people in and keeping them engaged with the business. And there's all sorts of ways that we can talk about that they've done that. And another big opportunity for us is the commercial or B2B business. So many of our members are working with other local businesses to provide them with their decor in their office, with their promotional materials, with their marketing materials. And that's become a very lucrative area for them. And so we're seeing a lot of growth there.
Nice.
For the people that, Brenda, for the people that are, for our listening audience, can you tell us the members of your association are photography retailers? Who's involved? I know you explained what they did, but is it brick and mortar? Who's participating in this membership?
Absolutely. So a majority of our members are specialty retailers. They have a storefront in their local community. A lot of them are still on Main Street, and they provide this service to their local customers. A lot of them also have an online presence, but they're very pretty much focused on their local areas. Some of our members also have camera stores. So they're a camera store that also provides services within the photo industry, which would be printing and education and a variety of other services that they provide. We do have some members that don't have a storefront per se. They might be more in an industrial or commercial building, and they're probably a sports or school photographer that's printing all of their own work and providing work that way, working with professional photographers and doing all of their printing. But a majority of our members do have a storefront and either do just services or a combination of both hard goods and services.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you for that clarification. I'm interested only because Kent and I were laughing about the fact that have always been a hardcore need to get my film in my camera and then go and take the pictures in. That's, it's kind of like the resistance of moving from your record player to CDs and now to only digital music. There are hardcore people, photographers out there that are the only best prints are from film. And Kent looks at me and says, "Well, what's film?" So it was that aha moment that I had of, oh, we are like in a different age. And so I'd love to start exploring how these brick and mortar stores that are sitting on Main Street, I see it so well in my imagery right now, are expanding their experience and still alive, still thriving in an industry where there are probably a lot of people don't eat like Kent who don't really, they know film, but it's not on their radar screen.
Right. Absolutely. And just as a side note, I think a lot of that stuff is coming back in small bits. So I know a lot of people now that are very obsessed with vinyl, and all of that comes back around. So we
Absolutely.
actually, I've been with IPI for 11 years. We have not taught any classes or sessions or had any brainstorming on film processing until last year. We actually had to bring a session back because we have a lot of members that are now, because the industry has downsized over the years. Not very many people out there process film anymore. And so it's actually become very lucrative for our existing members to be able to provide that service as people are getting involved in that further. And we see it with a younger demographic. We actually had a statistic the other day that the youngest generation, I think the 13 to 17-year-olds, are now printing their photos, and they plan on continuing to print their photos. So that's all really great, positive information for us. And so we're excited about that. And I think a few weeks ago, maybe on your podcast, you mentioned that millennials are actually very engaged with in-store experiences. So that's all really good news for our members. I think there's one thing that our members have really started to focus on and capitalize on is the concept of archiving. And so a lot of people have huge, whether it's their own or they inherit it from their parents or their grandparents, huge box loads in their attics or their basements of printed photos, slides, negatives, reel-to-reel films, VHS tapes, all things that nobody can do anything with anymore. It might be obsolete technology or just too much. And it's hard to share when you have that, things trapped either in those types of technologies or just giant, large photo albums that are so heavy. And so our members are able to scan all of that, transfer it into digital media, and then it can then be turned into projects that make things easy to share. So for example, you might find your grandparents' wedding album in your attic. You can have that scanned and then send it out to all the grandchildren and great grandchildren. And so they've been able to really take projects like that and run with them and get very creative in what they're doing. But they're finding that that just continues to increase over time as technology changes and as people, we have this large baby boomer generation that's starting to downsize, and they're finding all these things within their homes and their parents' homes. And so they've really been able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of things there. There's a lot to this, So
Yeah, it's complex.
there's and from my perspective, Leslie mentioned I'm not a photography expert, but I would like to talk to you about an opportunity, or maybe, it could be an oversight or an opportunity, or maybe a change in the industry. But I had a lot of friends when I was in college that had a small photography business that they had started in high school, or maybe they just do it as a hobby and they've kind of expanded it to their Instagram page and they've gotten some publicity from that. So for the photography industry, almost like photography has expanded to almost everyone in the developed world, right? So everyone has a phone with a camera. So is that an opportunity to say, like, you don't need to buy $1,000 camera in order to be a good photographer or to share your memories and have a memory collective? So
Correct.
talk a little bit about the opportunity that lies with everyone having a camera in their pocket.
Sure. I think probably
for your members and for the in-store photography experience. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And I think probably the biggest area is education. Historically, the members that were providing the most on the education side were our members that also have camera stores, right? So somebody comes in to buy a new camera they need to learn how to use that camera, then they want to get better, then they come in to hear a talk from this photographer, or this manufacturer comes in and provides education to them. And so that was a good way for our camera stores to be able to educate their customers and keep them coming back in and upgrading their equipment. We've now seen a lot of people providing education on the services side of the business. So teaching people how to take better pictures with their iPhones or their Android devices, or whatever camera that they're using. Also, we have members that do a lot of either Instagram classes, so teaching people how to use Instagram. The editing tools and the capabilities change on that constantly, so there's always an opportunity there. But then also do Insta walks, where you go out and you go out into your local community. Maybe they pick a specific location like a botanical gardens, or something that they can do local. Maybe it's even supporting a charity to get the member engaged with the local community. But going out, taking pictures, tagging them, sharing them, doing some kind of where everybody gets a print for participating, and maybe it turns into a contest or a critique afterwards. There's so many different ways that they can frame that. And then also classes that get people in the store, and we call them make and take classes. So you'll take photos that are on your phone, you'll be able to pull them up, do some minor editing to them, and put them into a product that you walk away with, a printed product. Maybe it's a gift, maybe it's a piece of wall decor for your home, could be really anything. They can frame those around that too. But it's getting people in the store, getting them used to what you do. I'm sure we can talk a little bit more about the things that people are doing to engage customers as far as displays and merchandising. But really, I think one of the challenges has been for our industry is that the average consumer doesn't understand the capabilities that our members have, where they can really print on any kind of medium. They can really create anything that you want creatively. And so being able to demonstrate that in the store and show them, and getting them in to take a class is a great way to be able to show that to them. So I think that's an area where they've really been able to engage customers on a local in-store level.
Yeah. So what's the role of your members, your stores in, I guess let's take the camera store sales floor associate. What's their role in providing that information that says, hey, you can really make a cool, you can put that family picture you have and you can put it on a slate, you can put it on whatever material you can think of, and we can make it a custom, housewarming piece or whatever. So is it just in a class that that's the opportunity, or is it like when you're selling a camera to someone? I'm not sure if that's, your area of expertise or where you're passionate, but taking this to the sales floor associate and saying, like, you have to get people to realize that they can do so much more with their camera or do so much more with their pictures than just having it on their Instagram page.
Right. So a few years ago, our organization started developing a licensed retail business model, a retail store plus the solutions you need to sell to outside businesses. So it's got a B2B element to it. We have 4 locations up and running, and they're all very different. Where we've seen a big opportunity in that is partnering with camera stores that provide printing, that don't really know that a lot of times our camera store owners, they're very knowledgeable in the camera store area and not as much on the services side, or they don't have the time to dedicate to that side of the business. So we've developed kind of a store within a store model. And so now there's a brand with displays that make exactly what you were saying very easy for members. So there's a lot of cross training involved. Typically in the old model of a camera store, the camera salespeople probably didn't either understand what was going on in the other department, or they didn't really worry about that other department. And now we're bringing all that together. So they have a brand that they can get behind, because salespeople are used to being behind brands. They're going to sell you, they're going to prefer a Canon camera or a Nikon camera or a Sony or whatever their brand is, and they understand that. So putting a brand like the Print Refinery behind their sales process makes a little bit more sense. And then the displays that we've created around that give them a good tool to be able to explain all of that really well, and have the customer understand. And then there's also, I think most people are probably pretty aware that cameras themselves don't carry a lot of margin anymore. A lot of that has to do with big box retailers and online retailers, and the manufacturers. So our members are finding their biggest margins in either the accessories that they sell for those cameras and especially on the printing that people do in their stores. And so being able to give the same kinds of benefits to employees for not just selling a camera, but for selling printing has started to really shift and turn that around so that now salespeople can talk about, okay, you're buying this, let's get you signed up for this class, and then look at all these beautiful things that you can create and start to have those conversations. And we're actually working on training modules right now of what kinds of questions to ask people so that you can be better equipped to make those sales.
You're right up our alley with this, and I'm sure our listeners here that listen to the whether it be outdoor retail or run specialty or bike specialty, they're having the same issue of lessening margins on the reason they got into the business. How it's harder to sell and make a profit on bikes or the running shoes themselves or sup boards or whatever, and they're having to rely on the services or the classes or the accessories or the apparel. So I'm glad you hit that. And it's almost a deja vu moment of like, man, this is every industry. The big box retailers have damaged the retail space, lessening margins. It's more incumbent on the sales floor associate to be able to sell not just the product, but the lifestyle behind it. Does that make sense?
Oh, exactly. It really does. One of our members, Fort Worth Camera in Fort Worth, Texas, they adopted our print refinery model, put it inside their camera store as a department. And I went out there for their annual photo fest last spring. They do 3 weeks of classes and events. So it's a huge festival that they do where every day you're able to go and take pictures of a different thing. You might go to the rodeo one day, you might go to an air show the next day, the botanical gardens, it could be any variety. So they kind of hit on all the hobby areas of photography. So this was the first year that they added services into the mix and started offering classes on the services that they're providing now that they have this brand and all these displays in their store. And so I went out and taught a couple classes for them. And one I did on a product that we call the Gather Box, which is built around archiving, where you can fill up this box with all your old photos and slides and videos. And then the store will turn around and digitize all that for you. And then from there, they're able to sell you other, whether it's books or wall art or gifts. And, just listening to members over the years that have had this box in their store kind of sitting there and maybe struggling with how to sell it or how to market it, I went in and just taught a class on archiving and the importance on how this media won't always be around. You really need to do something with it. Here's how easy it is to do it and what mediums you want it in. I didn't have boxes in the room. I didn't do any of that. The last slide, I think, of the presentation did have some information on next steps and if they wanted that Gather Box. 5 people went and asked me to go get them a box, and they walked by the register and spent $150 a piece on their way out of the store. Not because I sold them a Gather Box. I taught them about the importance of what they needed to be doing, and that was the easy what they could do right there. So I've really been noticing just how important the education in the store is to selling all those other things. And it can be such a great tool for dealing with all these problems that all retailers are facing.
Yeah, like, hey, that big box of hard pictures that you have, you need to translate that because they're not going to be around forever. Doesn't matter if you know photography or don't know photography. That's a real issue that everyone has. How do you maintain those precious family heirlooms or great memories from a childhood trip? That's a selling point. That's an emotional twang that people are going to feel.
I have so many questions. The word extinction keeps coming up in my mind, and maybe because it's raining and my arthritis is killing me today, but I would love to explore the idea of there's always an evolution. And I have always been fascinated with the photography industry. And I love the fact that film is coming back. What is it in your membership, the owners of these brick and mortars, what caused that aha moment that film is and printing is slowing down, and that change that had to occur or extinction was going to happen? And then how is your organization forecasting to the 11, 12, 13-year olds who are going back to film, and really focusing your efforts and energies on gaining momentum before extinction again?
Right. So I think when things went from film to digital and people now didn't rely on printing things to be able to see them and interact with them, now people are just putting things on Facebook or Instagram and not having to print them. Our members were faced with people would come in and take time in the business to just print out a few things, what they would say, a handful of 4x6s. So the smallest, least expensive item is what they were coming in for when they needed it for a purpose. And so what we've been trying to do over the past several years is increase the average ticket sale, increase the overall sales volume that each customer is coming in to do by providing them higher end items, much higher margin items. So instead of just those 4x6s, how do we sell them on a large piece of wall decor or a whole gallery wall in their store? How do we use the archiving piece to our advantage and then work on upselling into additional things that we can get once we have all that media digitized? So really higher ticket, higher margin items is where we've been going. And then really the resurgence of film has kind of just been a really nice added bonus for people that kept their equipment running over the years and now have seen it come back. So they've been very excited about that. I think there's still, though, a very big emphasis on transitioning from those smaller ticket items to bigger ticket items, which then translates into getting involved in commercial sales. And you can do a gallery wall for a retail consumer any day, and that's a great sale. But if you could do that for a business or decorate every room of a hotel or a doctor's office or a hospital, that's really where our members are headed, to be able to provide those kind of large installations that will keep their businesses thriving.
What is the typical lifespan of a new camera of your members?
Sure.
So, like, if they sell a camera to someone, what do they typically say this is going to last you X amount of years, or it requires maintenance every 6 months? I know that maybe, if you're a photography person, that may sound like a stupid question, but there's an element to selling lifespan, like selling, how often are you going to have to come back to a camera store? And how do you use that as an advantage as a sales floor associate?
Because I'm not on the camera side of the business, I'm not quite sure what the statistics are on how often people are purchasing new equipment, at
Right.
least like a full body of a camera. A lot of things that our camera stores are doing, and I recently taught a session at there's an association just like ours in the camera industry. And so we do a lot of cross education because a lot of our members are members of both groups. And I taught a session recently where we brainstormed ways to take a person that's buying a camera, and then how do you extend the life of that customer and keep them coming back in the store over and over again, and not just to sell them upgrades of equipment, but how do you get them taking advantage of the services where you have a much higher profit margin? And the things that we came up with on the camera side are, you need to have your sensor in your camera cleaned, you need to have your lens cleaned, you might need to have your lenses calibrated. So selling a service package, kind of like one of our colleagues equates it to a car wash, right? So you might buy a package at your car wash. So when you go in to get your camera, you're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
a service package for that camera. And then also selling a package of printing with that. So you're going to be printing so many prints over the time, or you might be selling a package of classes. A lot of them, it's a VIP program where you pay a fee to be involved in this VIP program, and you get notifications of things ahead of time. You might be able to have access to things before other people do, like sign up for new classes or events before everyone else, but also being able to print so many, X of this. And so just all that package sales that you're doing when you're selling that camera will keep those customers coming back in the store for a longer period of time. And we're seeing some people are having great success with having that kind of either VIP program or package deal.
Yeah. And so that's a segue question into each retailer or every industry that we see, whether it be bike, run, outdoor, manufacturers, each industry has its own unique challenges. And what I mean by that is, from a objective standpoint, a bike shop has a challenge in that a particular bike can last a very long time. And the margins typically on a bike are very low. Their unique challenge and opportunity is that a bike can come in and get service, which is 100% profit margin. Like you get straight profit from having someone, working on someone's bike. So, and running shoes are interesting because you can't work on a running shoe, so there's a unique
Right.
challenge for that industry. So what's a unique challenge that a camera retailer or maybe even a camera manufacturer or maybe a challenge that you see, what's unique to the photography industry that creates either a challenge or maybe an opportunity?
Right. I think it's definitely the technology aspect. So you can take dozens of photos or hundreds or thousands or up to a trillion if we're talking about all of us together and never do anything with them. And so I think the customers of these stores have a couple of problems that our members can help them with education wise is one, learning what to do with those photos. So sometimes it's if you're an amateur photographer or a hobbyist photographer, you might take 100 photos of the exact same thing. So teaching them how to organize that, how to maybe say goodbye to some of those redundant images and get organized, that's an area that a lot of our members are now providing education on. So how to organize, how to tag things, how to kind of keep digitally organized. And then now that you're organized, what are we going to do with those? Those shouldn't be trapped in your phone. We know that we sold you this lens so you could go on safari in Africa. Okay, well, let's do a Great Wall installation. These are things that we've done for other people that have been on safari. Look at how beautifully this looks in their room. Let's see what we can do for your walls. And our members are now offering measuring and installation and delivery and pickup and all kinds of additional added services that they've been able to provide to make it easy for the customer. So it's not always having to where they have to do everything themselves and come in themselves and do that. But it's knowing your customer and why did they originally come into you to get your expertise, and then how can you use that to help them, which then obviously helps you as a retailer.
Yeah, so no matter what industry you're in, you have an opportunity to provide not only a product, not only a space where you can communicate, that passion, but also you're providing inspiration, especially in the photography industry. You're providing like, hey, this is what we had a customer last year that did an African safari as well, and we provided this collage or we showed them how to make that. It's inspiring. You can, like, I want to take photos like that. I want to put myself in situations where I can go outside and create these images and show them to my peers. So there's a unique photography community, I think. And if you peruse Instagram, you can definitely see the photography community out there.
Definitely. And a few things that we've done with our model, the print refinery, the displays are very conducive to having those conversations. So in just putting up, we have a display, it's a media display where it's the same image printed on 8x10 pieces of every substrate our members can print on. So you might have it printed on metal or on wood or bamboo or different types of paper mounted differently. And so it's a display that's on the wall. And it's amazing. It's a great tool for conversation. You can really have almost like a design center related conversation, just like you would if you were looking at things for your kitchen or your bathroom to remodel. But it also, just watching customers walk in the store and all of a sudden look at it and start playing with those things and picking them up and looking at them, they didn't know that that was possible before. And then next to it, we have a great display where we show examples of finished products with beautiful local photography. So each store has its own images that it uses on those pieces. And so it really provides that inspiration. And then an additional thing that we did within that store is we really got away from the across-the-counter transactional sales model. And so we have what we call collaboration tables. And so you'll either sit side by side with your customer or maybe at the corner of the table with your customer and work on a project together. So now you're collaborating, you're creative, you get to pull things down off the walls, pull different media types over. Some of our members provide custom framing, so that can work the same way, but you're not standing across a counter selling to somebody. You're working creatively on a project together.
I hope other industries are listening to this. They could really learn something from ditching that transactional face-to-face I mean, it works in certain spaces, but I think so many people have done it wrong that you said it right. The transactional give me money for X has become almost toxic for a lot of people.
Mm,
It becomes 90% of that experience for people is Walmart or Best Buy or moments where they're not appreciating the money that you're giving them. Money is important for people.
mm,
And the sales floor associate, almost in most places you go into, they don't offer that thank you for giving me your money
mm,
mindset, and that I like that, sitting side by side. Let's create something together. I'm thinking like a running store, because that's where my history is. Like, let's create a plan of action so you can fall in love with running, or you can fall in love with biking, you can fall in love with the outdoors, you can fall in love with photography.
mm.
And I like that side by side collaborative. Let's be on the same team. I know there's money being transacted here, but it's more than that. There's a relationship.
Absolutely. Our store in Bozeman, she does both. She has both camera and accessories and printing. And so on all of her collaboration tables, she actually has a packed camera bag full of accessories. And so anytime she's talking to a customer about cameras or lenses or equipment, they sit at those collaboration tables to talk about it. And then they have examples right there, which usually ends up greatly increasing the sales, because they just have all these examples of almost packing your travel bag that you would need to go off and take all of your photos. So that's a great thing that I think can be applied really to any specialty industry. So having bike accessories that you would need, or running, or whatever that is. You can't just have running shoes. I'm assuming you need socks and clothes and all the other things. So
That's one of the things that we even train on, is how do you make that transition
Mm,
of, hey, you got your running shoes, but there's more to it than that. Like,
mm,
you'll get blisters. It's cold outside. You can chafe. Like, things like that are not upsells. They're help. I'm
mhm,
helping you have the best run. I'm helping you go on the best. You can take the best pictures that you can imagine. You can go on the best bike ride of your life. That's the selling point. We say is that I'm helping you go on your best run. I'm helping you take your best photos. I'm not upselling you. I'm in collaboration with you.
I think that, Brenda, earlier you said, or Kent asked the question about the life of a camera. Like, how long does a camera last until someone needs to go purchase another one? And you replied that we're really focused on extending the life of the photography customer. And I think that a lot of our audience that's listening, it really is about relationship with the customer, not the product that you're selling.
Hmm.
And I think for a very long time, we have been very technically focused, because a lot of the products that are in the fly fishing industry or the bike industry, cameras, you name it, are very they're technically heavy. The beautiful thing about technology now is that I, as your customer, have the capacity to study before I come into your store. And so when I'm coming into your store, I'm presenting myself in a relational way, because I'm passionate about what I'm getting ready to go into. And so if you're outfitting me in whatever passion I'm into with photography, since we're talking to you, Brenda, then you're actually creating an epic experience for me, because I'm confident. You're building the confidence in my skill set as a photographer, which I might not have had when I came in. I have the technical aspects, and I know you certainly can talk to me about those technical aspects, but I'm really more interested in talking about what I'm getting ready to go take a picture of, and the exploration. And as I am telling you this story, there are also other accessories I probably am not thinking about and needing. And therefore, your community of members are really focused on my lifespan as a photographer.
right. And I think, Leslie, I think the key word that you said in there was passion. So our members, they're extremely passionate about what they do, to the point that they come to our annual conference and they network like crazy, like it's a family reunion and they stay up all night just to talk to each other. We have to persuade them to come to class to get out of those hallway conversations, almost like high school. But they're extremely passionate about what they do, and their customers are passionate about taking photos. And so being able to just communicate that passion back and forth, I think, is the key to selling. So even here at IPI, I technically have what you might consider a sales position, in that I'm bringing in new members, or I'm getting people to adopt our new licensed business model. But I don't sell it. I'm just passionate about it, and I'm able to have conversations in which I demonstrate that I'm passionate about it and find out what other people are passionate about, and then have that conversation that way. So it's much less about the selling and about just talking about common passions, and that demonstrates your expertise. It really just helps overall with those conversations and with that customer experience.
Yeah, you nailed it right on the head there. I think there's so much more to this. Like, I would say all of us agree that communicating passion to someone in a respectful, informative, sensitive, inclusive way is a skill. It's a skill that we need to be able to transfer. We need to be able to teach. We need to hire for that. We need to be able to, on our sales floor, in our organizations, with our boss, with our spouse, with our friends, we need to be able to communicate more effectively and give feedback and transfer passion. So you're speaking our language, and I love it. I think this has been a really eye-opening conversation for me, who has no skill in the photography industry or no knowledge of the photography industry. But as we wrap this up, we're at 40 minutes right now, so we've got
time flies.
Yeah. But as we get this to a close, I would like to ask you to look forward. I'm sure, as you always do, whether it be 1 year in the future, 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, where do you see upcoming challenges, or maybe any insight that you can offer for our listeners or other industries along the lines of what you've noticed, or where you see technology going? Because you're an industry where technology is going full speed ahead and it's not slowing down. So yeah, well, I'd just like to open that up to any opportunities you see.
I think technology is going to continue to amaze us with what we can do, both in the photography and video area. I know the 360 cameras have been getting a lot of buzz recently, and so it will just continue to grow. And I think being there to be able to provide education for people, to show them how to stay organized, what they can do with all their old media that they can't use anymore, and then what's possible as far as decorating their spaces. I know you guys have talked a lot about this in previous episodes, that people are really looking for experience just in their daily lives, not necessarily in store too, but just in their daily lives, looking for that experience over anything else. So being able to show people what they can do with their own personal spaces, decor wise, or the gift giving that they do, or just the education and events that you can provide in the store just to entertain people and to keep them engaged. I think all of those, they're kind of the opposite of technology, but I think it will work really well with where technology is headed, because people will be excited about both areas at the same time and being able to use one in hand with the other.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. So as we continue to explore these interesting topics and industries, we encourage anyone with questions or maybe follow-up or something you'd like us to talk more about. We love to have that open communication. We're going to continue full speed ahead. We've been missing Dan the last couple episodes, but as far as I know, he'll be joining us on the next one, or maybe the one after that. But I know you guys are maybe sick of Dan anyway. Appreciate joining us, Brenda. You had some awesome insight. And yeah, this has been mandatory listening, and we'll talk to you guys later.